Welcome back. So this lesson we're going to do our first deploy to Firebase. Now we have created the functions in the last series, so it's all available over here. Now we just need to try and actually upload something back to Firebase. So we kind of want to end up having our first function up here on Firebase, and we need to figure out how we can do that. Now let's start out with step one right here. First we need to start actually doing something. Right now everything here is commented out. All we're doing is we're explaining that we want to start using Firebase functions. That's pretty much all we can see right here. So actually right now if I did a build, let's just try and do it for the fun of it. Firebase deploy. Now you've seen this before because that's the same way you deploy an Angular app or our Angular app, how we deployed that. But if you say only like this and you say functions, that means that we only want to deploy the functions we have available right here. Now if I run this, automatically TS-lint will be fired. That's pretty amazing, and that will now explain to me actually there's a problem with the current setup. Now you'll notice right here you'll get an error back in a second, and it says something with there's something wrong, we can't deploy. And here's what it says. Functions is declared but never used. So it's actually enough. TS-lint won't let you deploy anything to Firebase if you don't use your function. So it's trying to protect you again to do good code, right? So you'll have to clean this up. Now the way we'll clean it up is pretty much just import this guy and actually start using it, the code right here, to do a simple request. Now I won't use this setup right here. I'll instead say exports like this dot and then the name of the method. So this is how I kind of want to do my exports. And then it's pretty much just to run over the code here. This is actually going to trigger every time somebody sends a request for me, any request for this Firebase right here. I'll actually hit that request for the hello world part and I'll just respond back to the guy, hello from Firebase. That's all it's going to do. Now we could try and do the build now again, but it'll fail again because right now we've not explained to the system that we are working with TypeScript. We're not working with actual JavaScript, so we have to do one more thing. Now I kind of Googled my way through this, but this is the path you want to find. So let me just try and zoom a little bit. Maybe you can read the text where we're at right here. You have to go into guides, you have to go into write functions, and you have to go and write functions in TypeScript. That's kind of where I'm at right here. Cloud functions, write functions in TypeScript. And pretty much when you scroll down here, it'll go in and say, when you want to kind of deploy this at some point, you need to add this part to your build right here. So we need to add this to our build. So I'll add this code right here to my package.json file. Now it's all explained in here, but it's just to make it easier for you guys to copy this so you don't have to write this in hand. So I'm just going to copy this inside the script. Let's just jump into our code again, find the package.json. Again, remember the package.json is for your functions folder, not the Angular project, so it's inside the functions folder. And there I go, and right now you'll see the build is very simple right here, but I want to instead make the build like this. So I'll just remove this old build and put in the new one I just copied. Pretty much just saying I want to use the TS-lint JSON when I'm building, and I want to point to the TSC when I'm building. So this is just, again, basic stuff to kind of make the build from TypeScript into JavaScript. It also says I have to make a change in the Firebase JSON file. With this configuration, a Firebase deploy only functions command builds your TypeScript code and deploys it as a function. So it builds my TypeScript code into JavaScript, so I also need to add this guy as well. So let's try and do that. I'll jump into my Firebase JSON file. Again, we have to remember that should be inside the actual project right here. So this is actually inside the actual project, not inside the functions folder, but inside the actual project folder. And here it seems I need to find functions right here. Here's something called pre-deploy. Let's just try and check out. It seems I just need to add this guy, npm prefix functions run build, and I'll just add that as another step right here. I'll save this. And now I'm ready to make my first deploy. So that was a few steps you have to know about, and I spent a bit of time Googling this, but finally I found a good solution. So let's try and do this now. Let's try and actually do the npm deploy only function and see if we can now deploy to Firebase. So when it's done deploying, you can see all the different steps it took to kind of get to this deployment, and you'll now see a function URL. Because we made an HTTP request right here, we can just trigger this URL right here with the /hello world, and then we'll actually hit that function that we just created and put onto Firebase. That was how simple it was. Those few changes now made it so that we now have an actual HTTP request available on Firebase, and we could start using this request to build a full backend like we did in the .NET framework earlier in the other series, right? But right now let's just see if this even works. Let's just try and jump into our browser right here, and I'll just paste this in, and hopefully I'll get a reply back saying hello from Firebase. Let's zoom a little bit so you can see it. There we go. Now again, what pretty much happens is just if we go into my Firebase function area, if I refresh now, you'll see now there's actually a function available. I just deployed it to my Firebase setup right here. There we go, HTTP request. I have some logs about this. We'll dive into these later, but it actually explains a bit about what actually happened on Firebase. You can console log yourself, but right here you'll see that somebody just called this new function I just created. Happy days, we have deployed our first function. Yes, I'm very satisfied. We've deployed our first function right here, Firebase. We're happy people. Next lesson we'll try and dive into what we can actually do with functions and start building this change to our system so the backend can take over and do a lot more of the work than what it's doing right now. Have fun, see you next time.